President Donald Trump appeared before reporters in the White House briefing room, projecting a confident and combative tone as he reaffirmed his commitment to reducing what he described as years of bloated government spending and unnecessary bureaucracy. His remarks came at a tense political moment, as the federal government remained partially shut down due to a funding standoff with Congress over border security. Trump made it clear that he viewed the shutdown not as a crisis but as an opportunity to advance one of his core campaign promises, trimming government waste and forcing Washington to operate more efficiently. He emphasized that he had been elected to disrupt the status quo, not maintain it, and that cutting unnecessary spending was a moral as well as fiscal obligation to the American taxpayer. The president's words sparked strong discussion on Fox News' midday show Outnumbered, where the panelists analyzed his message, tone, and political strategy. The show opened with co-host Harris Faulkner introducing the clip of Trump speaking from the White House. Faulkner noted that Trump's remarks, while focused on fiscal responsibility, came amid growing public anxiety about the impact of the government shutdown on federal workers and services. After the clip ended, the discussion quickly turned to whether the president's push to cut government waste was realistic or merely rhetorical. Kayleigh McEnany defended Trump's approach, arguing that the president was staying true to his campaign promises and demonstrating fiscal courage. She said that Washington has long been a swamp of inefficiency, filled with agencies and programs that continue to consume taxpayer dollars without accountability. McEnany emphasized that the American people wanted a leader who was willing to make tough decisions even when the political class resisted. She pointed to Trump's business background as evidence of his ability to make government leaner and more efficient. However, other panelists offered more skeptical views. Jessica Tarlov questioned whether the president's timing was appropriate. She argued that while fiscal responsibility is important, doing so during a shutdown that affects thousands of federal employees seemed insensitive. Tarlov noted that the optics of calling for spending cuts while government workers were missing paychecks could alienate moderate voters and increase partisan tension. She suggested that Trump's language was aimed more at energizing his political base than solving the budget impasse. Emily Compagno, meanwhile, highlighted the legal and logistical challenges of cutting government programs unilaterally. She explained that many agencies operate under congressional mandates, making it difficult for the executive branch to reduce spending without legislative cooperation. Compagno nonetheless admired Trump's willingness to speak bluntly about inefficiency in Washington, something few presidents have done with such vigor. In the days following President Trump's White House remarks, the political landscape in Washington remained intensely polarized. The government shutdown stretched on as both sides dug in, and the president's comments about cutting government waste became a focal point for debate not just among politicians but also in media circles, public opinion polls, and among ordinary Americans feeling the real effects of the impasse. On Fox News Outnumbered, the panel revisited the topic in subsequent segments, assessing how Trump's message was playing out in the court of public opinion. Harris Faulkner opened the discussion by highlighting that the president's framing of the shutdown as a battle against government inefficiency had begun to resonate with conservative voters who saw themselves as paying for an overgrown bureaucracy that delivered too little in return. Yet, she also noted that public frustration was growing, with polls indicating that many Americans were starting to feel the financial strain and uncertainty caused by the prolonged closure. Kayleigh McEnany emphasized that this tension was precisely what Trump had anticipated. She argued that Trump's strategy was long-term, designed to expose how dependent Washington had become on continuous spending and how rarely anyone in power challenged that inertia. McEnany said that by sustaining the shutdown, Trump was forcing Congress and the bureaucracy to confront inefficiencies they preferred to ignore. She pointed out that during every shutdown, news stories emerge about redundant agencies, overlapping programs, and outdated regulations that could easily be streamlined or eliminated. Trump, she said, was doing what few leaders had the courage to do, forcing a national conversation about what government should and shouldn't be responsible for. Emily Compagno added that there was also a legal and constitutional dimension to Trump's remarks that often went unnoticed in the media coverage. The president's executive authority, she explained, does not extend to cutting appropriations unilaterally. However, his role as the nation's chief executive gives him the power to prioritize efficiency within existing programs, identify redundancies, and push Congress to reallocate resources. Compagno noted that Trump's administration had already rolled back hundreds of regulations and reduced federal hiring in some departments, signaling that his rhetoric about cutting waste wasn't merely symbolic. Still, Jessica Tarlov cautioned that the economic and human cost of the shutdown might overshadow any long-term fiscal reforms the president hoped to achieve. She cited examples of unpaid workers, delayed tax refunds, and suspended public health services as evidence that the shutdown's real-world impact was far from abstract. She questioned whether the average American cared about bureaucratic inefficiency when their mortgage payment or child care expenses were due. Tarlov stressed that even if Trump's fiscal G